So I'm just going to hit record because I have a nasty habit of forgetting to do that. Um, so we'll do that, and we'll get ready. So everybody, welcome to season 2 of Wait, Hold Up, What? I am excited today because while this might not be the first episode of season 2, because I haven't figured that out yet, it is the first one we're recording of season 2. And so I'm pretty excited about that. And my guest today is Jen Porter. And I'm going to say hi. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you.
Yay, me too. Um, so I was let's use the word referred. I don't know if that's the right word, but I was connected to you through another woman that we know, and someone we introduced or interviewed in season 1, and she said, "This is a woman you need to know," but she didn't tell me why, which I kind of love, right? And after talking to you, I knew why, but I'm gonna put you on the spot here and say, why do you think she connected us and said we should talk?
Well, I'm pretty sure I know why she connected us because there's a synergy here in what we do. I know. So, Karen Laus is who we're talking about. I will give her a shout out because she is freaking amazing. And she and I have this shared passion for helping to elevate women's voices. So, I'm a women's empowerment coach. And so, when I shared with her what it is I'm doing and wanting to get this message out more broadly, she said, "You have to talk to Dawn." So, that's why
I
she
love it.
introduced us. I think the 3 of us, after having a conversation with you, it's clear that we have a shared heart for
Yeah.
really building community around women and helping them be brave and access their full potential of what they're created for.
Yes, I would snap. I think that's what you're supposed to do, right? Um, it's so true, right? And so for the listeners that don't know, obviously this is our podcast. Wait, hold up, what? But we are part of a bigger brand called Eliminate Girl Hate, and sometimes that confuses people because it's got the word girl in the title or it's got the word hate in the title. But ultimately, what we are really here to do is create space and opportunity for women and girls. And I'm going to add all who identify as such. We have no hate, dislike, or distrust of anybody. We want everybody to have equitable opportunities, safe opportunities, right? Profitable opportunities. And we believe that women are a part of that. And so, yes, the creating spaces for community and for people's voices to be heard is exactly what our mission is. And after talking to you, knowing that that's what you're doing, and I love that you're doing it on this more individualized or closer connected way and space by coaching women and empowerment. And so let's start there. We're going to go into this whole like animal kingdom conversation, but what is empowerment? Like, if you were to define that, or if someone were to say, I'm looking for something, and after you heard them, you said, oh, you're looking for empowerment. How
Mhm.
is that defined for you?
For me, the reason that empowerment is so important is because I have found in my own life and in the course of coaching others that powerlessness is one of the worst feelings in the world.
Mm,
And what I know to be true is that we are way more powerful than we realize. And so the work that I'm doing is helping women understand the power that lies within them, helping them to clarify what is inside, unearth that so that they can see it, and then make a decision about what they want to do about it. They don't have to take action, but
mhm.
when we're empowered and when we find the courage and we're emboldened, then we actually want to step into that, lean into it, and make those brave steps to do what it is that we're created to do. So it's overcoming that feeling of victimhood and powerlessness and, oh, I don't have enough, or I don't have this, or I didn't have this kind of education, or this resource, or all these other people have these things that I don't have. Really helping people start right where they are and realize you have everything that you need to be successful in the ways that are important to you. And that's different for every single person.
And how obviously when people find, and I always put things in quotes because I never know if this is like the real way to say it, uh, but this you feel is your purpose. This is your calling. This is what you're here to do. And most people, when that happens, there's a catalyst. So what was the catalyst for you to find this work and to find this purpose?
That's a great question. I do. I know that this is my purpose. I know that I'm in the space of my calling. For me, my story is I kind of grew up doing the thing that was expected of me and fell into a career not really with any great intention, just wanting to have a job and be independent, and kept getting these really, really amazing jobs. I've always loved my career, but there was never any real intentionality behind that.
Mm,
And when I was making a significant transition in my life, I met a coach at a dinner party when I was living in Seattle, and she had offered me a session. I took her up on it, and I learned something in that session that I'm still able to apply to this day. Now, when I was thinking about making a huge shift in my life, I needed somebody objective to challenge my thinking. I didn't want it to just be emotional or just be reactive. And so I reached back out to her and I asked her if she could help me. Now, we worked together for the course of years. And that I didn't know I was going to do that, but there was always something to work on. And I was able to do things in my personal life and my professional life that I would not have been able to do without her help. And so when I realized the impact of the coaching that it had on me, when I found myself in a director role, I wanted to do that for other people, but I thought that it was going to be just making me a better leader, a better manager. I loved coaching my people. I loved helping them shine and develop and be resourced to help them do things that they once thought was impossible. I got laid off right
mm.
at the time I was getting my coaching certification to become a professional coach, which I thought was going to help me be a better leader and stay where I was. But there was a different plan that was in place. And so when I got laid off, I started my practice 2 weeks later. So I knew I just had this passion to coach, and I knew that I could help women and men at the time. I had not narrowed it down to women at that time, but I knew I could help people transform their lives in the same way that mine had been transformed. And that I have this belief that we're not made to do life alone. And having the help of a supportive advocate who is, sharpened in being able to ask precision questions and illuminate things that you haven't seen before is just incredibly helpful to open things up for an individual.
There's so many questions. Um, One, I'm looking at something on my wall that says you were made for more than the lonely hustle, right?
Yeah.
And that's it right there. And there's so much anthropologically speaking and historically speaking about the power of community,
Yeah.
especially as it relates to women, right? And our survival and our evolution. So fascinating. You talked about this concept of intentionality. I very much relate to that, from a career perspective. Same thing. I always knew I wanted to do more, but it never had an intention of what it is because in my background, that wasn't a conversation a lot. And so I didn't have these big huge dreams I was going after. It was I got a job and I'm at that job and I'm looking around and I'm like, okay, here's the box that I'm in.
Yeah.
Here are my options. 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go for 1 first, and I'm gonna go for 2, and I'm gonna go for 3, right? And everywhere I went, that was what it was. Da, 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 da. So, is it without having that intentionality as you go through your career, was it a listlessness? Was it a dissatisfaction? Like, or was it purely happenstance? You sat next to a coach, the coach said, "Let's meet." You met and there was a light bulb. Like, did you already
Mhm.
have some, like, whisperings that maybe you weren't where you wanted to be?
I am sure that I did.
Okay.
Here's what coaching did for me, which surprised me. What I realized is there were dreams that were laid dormant inside of
Mm,
me that had never been initiated, had never been given energy, had never been invited into a conversation.
mm,
And I grew up in a culture that was pretty boxed in, and so dreams were kind of like frivolous. It's like, "Oh, that's cute." But it was much more about living a very practical life And
Sure.
success looked like, earning money, being comfortable, having a family, and staying in the community that you grew up in. There wasn't a lot of much more than that. And so
Was sorry to interrupt you, was part of that practicality, um, influenced by being a girl or a woman? Like, was part of the practicality gender-based at all? And it's fine if it wasn't, I'm just curious.
I'm sure it was.
Okay.
I'm sure it was.
So some of the
But I
boxes
think
were
some of the practicality was more clearly related to not being too far away from the generation that lived through the depression.
mm, sure.
And so it really was about holding on to what we have. Don't think too big. We should just be content with what we have. And so it was more of that. I'm sure that there were gender biases that were showing up, but those didn't become clear to me until later in life.
Mm, yes, yes, yes.
Probably
And
until
were
my
you, so I also relate to that.
okay.
I people that know me and have known me for a very long time will say that I'm not sure how nicely they might say it, but I have been a pain in the ass for a whole lifetime, right? And I always asked questions, I was always challenging. I hear that a lot. I
Mhm.
personally did not know that about myself until about 40, 38, 40.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was based on gender, like, unknown biases to me, but I didn't see it that way. I didn't consider myself this, like, feminist or this, like, political-minded person or any of that, but it was very natural in me.
Yeah.
And then there was this awakening where I saw something that I could not sit any longer. It was one thing to use my voice, it was quite another thing to take an action on it and
Mhm.
get involved in changing it for
Yeah.
myself, whereas previously it was a lot about other people. It was
Yeah.
like, "Ooh, I can protest against that because they're hurting these people." It was never anything about my own safety, my own security, my own needs, and that really happened later in life, and I talk to a lot of women, and I think there is something about that transition from 30s to 40s that does that for a lot of women, especially in today's culture,
Yeah.
with all of the visibility and the access that we have to information, right?
Yeah.
Um and so, yeah, I'm gonna guess there are women listening, shaking their head going, "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah."
Yeah.
Like, I remember that. I didn't know I was dissatisfied
Right.
until somebody turned on a flashlight, right?
And we have to see some things modeled for us. We
Yes.
know that there's something else possible. That's part of the reason community is so important is because there are always people that are going to be inspiring us. It's like, "Whoa, look at her. She's doing that." And
Yeah.
then we realize, "Wait, maybe I can do that too. Maybe I can take that next courageous step because somebody else has already done it." And I
And
can look
not only maybe can I do it, but maybe I can dream it. Because a lot of times that's the first part, right? We don't even give ourselves permission to
right.
dream that large,
No,
right? Because who are we
that's right.
to imagine something better? Um,
Yes, that's
it's
so interesting.
we're taught it's narcissistic a little bit.
Yeah, self-centered, right?
Yeah,
We need to think of and gosh, how much girls are taught to think about the other as opposed to focus on our own needs. And so, wow, is it so hard for us to name our needs, to name our wants, our desires, much less our dreams. So
yes.
that is absolutely something that I've had to learn how to do. I've had to
Mhm.
strengthen those muscles over time, and I'm still working on that. And I'm
Yeah,
always inviting other women to name what it is that you need. What do you want? What are your desires? And it's really uncomfortable for people. It's
yes,
really uncomfortable.
yes. Because there's also this, like it's so weird 'cause I think about this in relation to myself, but, like, I have never understood what it meant to be content.
Okay.
And there's this juxtaposition of contentment, right? Because
Mhm.
on one hand contentment can breed idleness, and
Mhm.
uh it can just breed fear and prevent things from happening. But there's another side of that coin that if we don't find contentment in moments, in spaces, that we also never truly connect with ourselves and our communities because we're always wanting something that maybe we don't need. We're just in pursuit instead of receiving, right? And you have to be able to give and receive to
Yeah.
really experience all the beauty that is around
Fullness of
us.
life. It is about
Exactly.
giving and receiving. I call that the cycle of generosity. It's where we're
Ooh,
always giving of what we have and we're receiving of what we don't have. And in a safe, trusted community, that's a beautiful thing because
yes.
we always are lacking something, right? But we
Yeah.
always have something that other people need that comes really naturally to us to give. And so we're pouring out, but we're also filling ourselves up.
And a lot of times we're pouring out what we need in return because
Yeah,
we haven't figured out how to give it to ourselves, right? There's a
true.
beautiful book, creatives all over the world have read it, but Elizabeth Gilbert wrote a book called Big Magic,
Yeah.
and one of the things she talks about in Big Magic, and I'm gonna wholeheartedly butcher this, so everybody go buy the book. It's very small, it's an easy read. I think it works for everybody, not just creatives. They do not sponsor our show. I'm not making any money from that suggestion. But she talks about this idea, she talks about ideas and how
Yeah.
we all get them, right? You're laying in bed or you're taking a shower and you get this amazing idea for an invention
Yeah.
and then it disappears because you do nothing with it,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Yeah.
maybe that's because, it's an invention for some sort of physics theory and you don't even know how to add 2 plus 2, right? But
Right.
randomly you got an idea. And so maybe it's not your idea to have. But what she posits is that an idea never goes away. It
Mhm.
just goes and travels until it finds the activator, if you will, the
Yeah.
person that is supposed to take it and run with it. And so part of our challenge of humans is really identifying which of these ideas, which of these purposes or passions or light bulb moments we're supposed to move forward with,
Yeah.
and which are we supposed to release in the universe or even give to someone else
Uh-huh.
to let them carry that into the end zone or whatever other sports metaphor you
Yes.
need, right?
Yeah.
Um, and
Mhm.
there are some people I would consider myself, I have maybe 3 million ideas a day. And I wish I could say I was exaggerating, but that is my brain.
Wow.
I am an ideator. I'm very imaginative and creative.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my brother is very artistic. I mean, this dude can draw, paint, build anything. He's so talented and has no realization of that talent. It's disgusting to me. I like God bless him. But and I was always so jealous because I was like, I've got all these ideas, but my hands can't even draw a stick figure. Like, oh, I wish. And so combined, we were a very powerful force, right?
Wow. Oh,
Because it's like, okay, if I've got this and you've got this, let's put them together and make beautiful things. And
yeah.
that's what I think communities of women are missing is the partners and the people to carry those ideas with them because we often are afraid of help or we're often uh we feel resigned to the roles we've been given rather than reaching out and grabbing what we want.
I so true. So well
Yeah.
said, all of it.
Yeah.
I think that there's also a real independent spirit that we have, especially in our country, so that we think everything rests on our shoulders and that
Yeah.
up to us if it's gonna get done, and we have to do our thing, and there's a sense that we may be competing against one another
Yeah.
if we're in similar arenas,
Yep.
and the truth is there's such abundance. There's not enough people to meet all the needs world all the world's needs. And
Yep.
so when we can come together in community, and actually this is something that I create. This is a gift of mine that I create is building communities where women encourage one another. And I see this happen all the time where I am forming a group and these women begin to speak into each other's lives and they
Yes.
encourage and call out what they see and they can make connections and introductions and share their ideas and bring it actually elicits courage in the other person because they feel affirmed, they feel seen, and they're able to take those steps that they couldn't have done on their own. We
Yes.
we can only muster up so much courage on our own. We actually need to lock arms with others who are also powerful forces and believe
Yeah.
in us to be able
And
to
it's courage, it's energy, it's ability, right? Like, and I wanna add some historical context, and then we're gonna move on because I really wanna talk about this lioness stuff. But I wanna add some context for listeners because you do hear in conversations, whether it is about feminism or women's rights or just everyday conversation, you hear a lot about the concept you just talked about, and that, we are an individualist culture or society here in the US, and other countries have more collectivism as in their thought process. But while that is true, I think it really becomes apparent when we talk about women, and especially when we talk about women from a professional standpoint. So, historically and anthropologically speaking, women were always part of communities, right? We actually have a coaching program ourselves called the Six Sister Collective. And the reason it is called the Six Sister Collective is after this kind of Native American piece of art that I saw in Arizona, where they talked about how throughout history, women have done everything as a collective. When they raised their children, they raised them with their community, right? It was the grandmothers, the aunts, the friends, they all came together to lift up, whether it be children, whether it be household uh, things, taking care of the community, all of that is this communal
Yes.
thing. But when women went very strongly into the workforce in this country, which obviously first happened during World War II, but then as you get into the 70s and 80s and you really get this uh, movement of women into the workforce, we had to fight for those roles. And
Mhm.
what we were told is, hey, we've got 5 roles. Crap, we got to give one of them to a woman. So instead of us fighting's the wrong word. Instead of us competing with men for a role, we were told, or the narrative was that we were competing with other women because only one woman could win. And that was for many generations, mine, even my mother's who came before me, right? That was the narrative. And so this idea that women are catty and competitive and all of that,
Mhm.
it's not actually part of our genetic makeup or even our evolutionary makeup. It was part of a narrative that was given to us because it was, "Hey, we're gonna give you a foot in the door, but not all of you. Good lord, we can't handle that," right? And in these last 2 generations, they're changing that, and they're realizing, "Oh, no, there's 5 jobs, 5 women can get those jobs." And
Mhm.
so that competition kind of thing is changing, and we're seeing a return to this collectivism and this community narrative for women that's really, really strong. And I only put it out there because I do think some women in the younger generation do not realize that that's the backing or the baggage
Right?
that that's been given to them or handed off without them maybe even knowing.
It was
And
circumstantial.
yes, and
Mhm.
so when we originally talked about what this episode could be and what your work is and what you do, we talked a little bit about the animal kingdom and we talked about lions specifically. And after we talked about it, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm a Lion King girl." I probably was 18 when it came out or something, but still it was, like, obsessed, right? Animation, story, the whole thing.
Mhm.
And then in our culture, the king of the jungle, right? It's always the lion. The lion is the head of everything. There's so many tropes, so many stories, all of that. But when you actually look into the animal kingdom, the king doesn't really have a lot to do. The king doesn't have a lot of responsibilities, and the king is not what makes the kingdom run.
Yeah.
And so that is what I wanna talk to you about and why you went into this dialogue or conversation or exploration around it. Maybe you can add some context.
Yeah.
I just get excited, so I keep talking, so
Yeah,
here.
the lion imagery is very important to me, and it has been with me for probably a decade, and the lion, if anybody can see, is behind me to remind me. So, where it comes from is during one of the hardest, devastating seasons of my life, I heard the words, "You have a heart of a lion."
Mm.
And I believed it. And so that has stuck with me, but I forget. I forget that I have a heart of a lion, and so I need a visual reminder every day to tell me. And as I sat with that, this lion energy, I realized the work I do is with women. And so wanting to try on this lioness language and see how that fit. And there's an incredible book called The Lioness Rising by Lisa Bevere. And so probably read that, I don't know, 10 years ago. And what I what I've come to realize is that the lionesses in a pride, in nature, are the ones that are actually hunting. They're the ones that are hunting for food. They're the ones that are bringing that food back to the pride so that all can eat. They're the ones that are protecting the young. They're making sure the home, where they're living is safe. They're helping one another. It's all about the whole pride. And so I started thinking about how we are lionesses and what is that energy that we bring. It's not a ferociousness. It's not an aggressive energy. It is so the lioness represents feminine strength
Mm.
and it represents grace. I mean, if you look at how a lioness moves,
Mm.
she's confident, she's relaxed, she knows what her mission is. She knows how to rest, she knows how to hunt, she knows how to play, and she knows how to protect. And so these characteristics seem really wonderful when it comes to like who we as women want to be and who we want to be in community. And so I am inviting women into this idea, this concept of a lioness and this language around lioness rise up. It's designed to elicit that strength and that power that's inside someone. They may be disillusioned, they may be uncertain about their future or where they are, and to encourage them to tap into that and see what wants to emerge out of that
Mm.
lioness energy. There's a lioness inside us,
Mhm.
and we need it to be called out.
What do you think prevents I don't wanna ask it that way. You get a client, it's a new client, they come into you, and I imagine you say, "Tell me a little bit about yourself," or even, "Tell me why you're here." Is there a commonality to those answers? And if there was, do they know the commonality, or is it you are seeing that commonality, and what would you say it is?
It's fear. It's always fear.
Fear
So
of what?
all kinds of things. So, women don't come to me saying, I have this thing that I wanna do, but I'm afraid."
Okay.
It's the unearthing and surfacing, like, "Well, hey, okay, you wanna do this thing, this is your dream, this is your desire, you're discontent, you're disillusioned, you wanna make a change. What's stopping you?" "Why haven't you made this change?" Well, the truth is there's a lack of confidence,
Mhm.
there's a ton of insecurities. There is a there the uncertainty is paralyzing for most humans.
Mm.
If we
Yes.
can't see the exact path that we're gonna take to get somewhere, we don't know the how. How in the world is this gonna happen? We get so stuck. And so what it boils down to is fear. And every single person has some level of fear that is absolutely holding them back from who they're created to be and what they're meant to do. And so my work is helping to bring that to light, letting them see, "Oh, let's look at this in the face and be honest about it," and then helping them build on, okay, these are your strengths, this is where you want to head. I have to help them craft the vision because most people don't come to me with a clear vision, right? They
Mm.
come to me with glimpses and inklings and this fire inside of them that they don't know what to do with. They want to
Mm.
get to the other side, but they're afraid to take those steps because they're afraid to fail. They're afraid that something's going to blow up. They're afraid
Mhm.
that they're not going to be able to do it all, that something's going to um, become catastrophic in their life if they make
Yeah.
these changes because they're holding up so many things. And so the work is to help them carve that path forward in a way that is sustainable
Mhm.
and steps that
And
we can take.
when we like, there's fear of failure, which who isn't, right?
Right?
Uh, we talk about how you can't succeed without failure, and failure teaches us our biggest lessons. I mean, and we all know that's true, and yet still, right? We're like, I can't fail. And culturally, we have this thing against failure, right? And we love to tear people down, but then we also like a comeback story, and
We
it's
do.
almost like we like the story better than anything else, which makes sense. But there's the fear of failure, and then there's the fear that is confidence based, because I think those are different. Would you say those are 2 different things?
They're related. They're
Okay.
definitely connected.
And we know this in other areas of the world where, there's the famous study, I'll probably mess up the exact statistics, but, a man and a woman go to apply for a job. A man has 30% of the qualifications, applies. The woman is like, "I've got 97, I probably shouldn't apply."
That's right.
So why do you think there's this imbalance of confidence for women, as opposed to men?
I do think it's nurturing
Mm.
how we've been nurtured to understand ourselves and our possibilities,
Will you
whether
put more words on that?
so if we have been invited to understand and become aware of our strengths, what it is. I call them superpowers because there are things that we do that are off the charts incredible, but we do not see them as special at all. They're bigger than strengths. These are gifts
Mm.
that we all hold. And if no one has come along and helped us see those things about ourselves, we are not going to step into greater things. We're going to stay right where we are. So again, it goes back to community, and that could be a family, it could be an education system, it could be, friendships, but there's someone that has to come along and help pull out what is inside of us for us to be able to see ourselves clearly. We're a mirror for each other.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because when you said that, I wanted to interject and say motherhood is that. Uh, I think, obviously, we live in a culture that expects us to be mothers. We've seen that recently, especially loud. And yet, when we are, it's just a given that we're going to do what that is. Like, I am not a mother, right? But I look at women and when I see a mother in general, I'm flabbergasted. Because how are you doing this? Like, how are you still standing?
Mhm.
How do you have cognition? Like, how have you not gone bonkers, right?
Yeah.
I love children, but oh my gosh, all day, every day, I think I would lose my mind, right? But then I see a woman who not only does that, but she's taking care of a home.
Mhm.
She's taking care of, often, and I don't mean this to be accusatory, a man.
Mhm.
uh, who might be another child in some universes, and then she might be working at the school, working in the community, having a full-time job,
Yeah.
and I am so tired in my life as a single person, I do not know how that's possible,
Yeah.
and yet, because we expect it, we do not give the mirror to what an amazing and superhuman
That's right.
power and strength that is.
Yep.
And we give them all the flowers on Mother's Day, and you win the Super Bowl and you say, "Hi, mom," right? But but you also, I'm trying to remember of the comedian that it is. I think it's John Mulaney, who is like, "Oh, we all say we love our moms, but what do we all do when our mom calls? Oh gosh." Like, we roll our eyes and like, "I gotta," right. Like, it's like, they help us 18, 20 years, and then it's like, "Peace out, I'm doing my own thing." And so, I can imagine as, in my position, I
Mhm.
imagine that that also gives this feeling of Okay, I did the things I was supposed to do. There's nothing special about that.
Yeah.
But then also your child leaves the nest and they go on their own like they're supposed to do because you did this amazing job. But now you don't feel so good about it because why aren't they there? And
Yeah.
so it's like the universe is giving you signals that even if you for a second thought, wow, my kid's dope. I did a really good job, right? The universe is like, not so fast. You're supposed to do that. And so
Um,
we don't really give those flowers or that mirror of excellence
mhm.
to women in those positions. And
Yeah.
it guts me to see that because look, I'm one of few in my life. Most of the women I know are mothers, they are wives, they are professionals, right? They're doing everything,
Yeah.
and we still don't honor that. They are doing all of the lioness work. Because
Oh,
what you didn't
okay.
say is that the lion just patrols and marks its territory.
Mhm.
That's all it does. The lioness does everything else to keep the pride
Mhm.
alive.
Yeah.
That is so clearly what our culture is, and that's not a disrespect to men. I'm not bashing men here. But I think we forget all of the roles that women play in our culture
Yeah.
and society. And so is it any wonder that a woman doubts herself or has less confidence or doesn't feel empowered to go into new spaces
Mhm.
when we're not even acknowledging the spaces she's already succeeded in?
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. The lionesses that are the mothers, yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of something you said earlier in our conversation about being able to give to ourselves
Yeah. Yeah.
what we need,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of the work is seeing ourselves more clearly and learning how to have grace for
Mm,
ourselves, to celebrate ourselves. I I celebrate the smallest of things.
me
Seriously,
too.
if I get it done, I'm like, "Look at me, I did that thing."
Me too.
It actually was hard,
Yeah.
right? It took a lot for me to do the thing, and I'm gonna celebrate that. I I think women, could stand to do more celebrating of our daily accomplishments of, "I got the kids to bed. I got
Yes.
them fed." I got them to their school and sports events, whatever those things are, like, "I did that. I am killing today. I am rocking it today."
Yeah.
And so I think really being able to see ourselves more clearly and affirm ourselves because we're the ones that see the daily stuff,
Yeah.
right? And not waiting for somebody else to affirm us.
But it's also a little bit of a privilege, right? Because you're so weighted down by the to-do list
Mhm.
and the expectations of the day. Like, I realize as a single person at my age with no children that I have this privilege to spend time on myself, to
Mhm.
get to know myself,
Yeah.
to spoil myself, celebrate my wins. And I will say this, I am a celebrator. I celebrate everybody. Anybody who has worked with me is in my family. They're almost annoyed by the celebrations because I think every day should be celebrated. I think it should have costumes and balloons and streamers and all of those things because if it's
Mhm.
just me in my life, I never get reminded of that.
Mhm.
And so to do it for other people,
Yeah.
especially a mom, right? To remind her, "Oh, okay, hey there, look at you. I
Right.
see you," right?
Yeah.
There is something powerful about being able to do that for others so that they might feel comfortable doing it for themselves,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Absolutely. We do have to learn it. It's not
Yes.
gonna come naturally.
Yeah. I think COVID taught me that. If
Okay.
I'm being very honest, it was the first time I slowed down
Sure.
and realized that everybody's busy, right? Like,
Yeah.
whether that busy we in this culture, we have a thing called the glorification of busy,
Mhm.
right? oh my gosh, we are just like, "Oh, you must be amazing because 'cause you're so busy." And for years, I had this little thing on my phone, my wallpaper said, "Stop glorifying the personification of busy."
Yeah.
And it took a very long time. It took COVID and a layoff to do that for me,
Okay.
and realize I was not in service of anyone else or myself by being busy all the time. And so now I sit and watch the rain, I watch a squirrel, I go to the beach and I'll sit for 10 hours. Now, again, that is a privilege because I am not taking care of other humans.
Yeah.
But if we don't give permission to women to do that even when they have a to-do list that's that large.
Right.
So as a coach and as
Mhm.
a person who has the heart of a lion, how do you give people, uh obviously it's space and grace, but how do you give them the permission to give themselves that?
I think you're so right about, celebrating others. So, I'm pretty sure I learned celebration by being celebrated. This
Ooh,
was not me creating celebration for myself. Other people saw me, and they
yeah.
celebrated what was in me.
And did you see the same thing, or was it their view that said,
Oh, it was their
"Oh,
view.
yeah, I did do that," or "I
I
am
did.
that"?
It was like, "Oh, I did? Okay, you think that's special? Okay, maybe that
Okay.
is. Maybe" no, that did take courage. That was kind, that was generous, that was wise, whatever the good thing was. I needed other people to help me see myself. So, celebrating others encourages them, and it's actually a lot sometimes it's part of the client's homework
Mm,
is, "Okay, how are you gonna celebrate what you just did?
mm. I
You
love
did
that.
this. Let's not skip over because people move so quickly through their accomplishments. So like, oh, I did this, this, and this, and this. Here's what I really need help with. I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, right.
slow down.
Yeah,
Did I hear you right?
yeah,
You did that and
yeah,
that when you had all these other things coming against you.
yeah.
All of these other this mountain of things and the season that you're in, which is, let's be honest, really hard. You did that? Okay, pause.
Yeah.
We need a moment of silence for that.
It's a two-sided coin of seeking versus relishing
Yeah.
almost, right? And so when d it's a teeter-totter, and you gotta find that balance between those 2
Here's
things.
what I find is that when I invite someone to see themselves and celebrate how freaking awesome they did in this thing, there's something that rises up inside of them, and it's like this pride, like, "I did it. Yeah, I did." Like, you can see it in their body language, and what that is, it serves as fuel for the next thing they're gonna do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fuel.
Are
We
there
need that to
messages,
keep going.
like, when you're talking to clients and when you're talking to women, are there common messages that they have received in their life that do keep them from seeing those things about themselves?
Yes. There's something that you alluded to earlier, and it was like, "Oh, that's something that I struggle with and that I've heard other people struggle with." And the phrase is, "Who do you think you are?"
Yes.
You
Yes.
said it earlier in a slightly different
Yeah.
way, but I was like, "Oh, that was my, gremlin,"
Yeah.
right? Like, "Who do you think you are?" And it's this voice and this tone of accusation and,
Yes.
keep me small and be ashamed of wanting to do anything outside of your box.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing that I've heard, I do work with women who are in male dominated spaces. And just recently someone said that a man said to her, "You don't belong here." And it's like, wow. But that phrase stuck with her.
Yeah.
For years she remembered it
Yep.
and it
I
affected her understanding of self.
I started this company because a leader said, "I don't know why we hire women in leadership positions when we're a men's company." And I was told at that place that I was too quirky. I was too left of center. I was too this, I was too this. And when I went into coaching program, it wasn't even the coach that said it to me. It was someone else in the room. They said, you know you're not Tupperware, right?" And it's hanging on my wall. It's a big, huge sign. I wrote it down. I am not Tupperware because I was so afraid to sell myself because everybody pushed when I did. When I said I won something or I did something and I celebrated it in public, I was told I was stepping out of line. I was a black sheep. I was left of center. I was quirky. I was all these things. And so anytime when I started this company, I didn't want to tell people I had it because I thought I was, no
Mm,
disrespect, but I'm just gonna say I thought I was an Amway person. I thought I was Avon. I thought I was, selling you something you didn't want or didn't need,
okay.
and therefore you did not want or need me. And so when
Wow.
someone said, "You are not Tupperware," I literally was like, I gotta just keep saying that again and again and again because sometimes that's what I feel like, a dusty thing you throw in the back of the cupboard and you only pull out when you need it. You're really happy when you need it and it works. Right? Your
What
food
if
is fresher, all those things, but you just don't give it much thought, and that was really how I was treating myself.
what have you come to understand now on the other side of that or through that?
W It's funny because some might say I still struggle with it,
Uh-huh.
because I do not like the selling process. I don't wanna convince somebody to let me help them. I'm not interested in it,
Right.
and so when I win the multi-million dollar lottery, right? I can continue this work and I won't have to charge for it because I don't want to.
Mhm.
But what I am now in an understanding of is it's not that I don't want to charge people because I don't think I'm good at what I do. I actually know I'm good at what I do.
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm very confident in that. But I don't believe that people should have to pay for it.
Mm.
And I believe that most of the time, the people that pay for it are already privileged enough to have some of that. And that the people who need it, the people that need encouragement, they need coaching, they need just somebody to hold their hand or tap them on the shoulder, they do not have the resources for it.
Mm.
And so I really look at it differently now. And so look, I do a lot of stuff for free. I do a lot of stuff for free because this is a calling. I
Yeah.
am supposed to do it. And so if I don't do it, I'm sick. I get sick
Uh-huh.
because it is supposed to come out of me, and if I keep it inside, that's not a healthy place for it, right? And so, right now, it's about finding the right mix for me. How do I
Mhm.
stay alive and sustain my home and my bills and all those the crappy things we have to deal with, right? But still be able to give my gift away,
Yes.
and honor it for myself because that is what it is supposed to do.
It's beautiful. I hear you saying, "I would do this for free if I could."
Yeah.
That I would just I love it so much, and it's so important. It's
I'd
essential.
rather do it for free, to be honest.
I've come to a slightly different understanding of this exchange, and I think it for me, what I
Mhm.
have landed on is that it's actually important to make an investment in ourselves.
Mm,
It's important no matter what the cost is, because it's gonna be different based on where people are in their lives.
of course.
But there's something significant and powerful that happens when we make an exchange. It's an
Mm,
energetic exchange of, I have this gift to offer you. The offering you're going to give back to me in exchange is money.
mhm.
That's the energetic
Yeah,
exchange that happens that's saying, we're making this agreement. This is the commitment.
yeah,
There's this
yeah,
giving and receiving again.
yeah, yeah,
There's an
and
energy.
I think it's certainly a journey. It's certainly a journey, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because I've been coaching for 15, 20 years and, managing people, whatever, however word I don't like the word coach for myself.
Okay.
I believe everybody needs a coach. I believe everybody needs a mentor, but I just believe the term is a little bit bastardized. But I will tell people, "Oh, hold on. You're charging a quarter? You are worth 25 quarter." You know what I mean? Like, I firmly believe in that because we live in a capitalistic society, and that is the way that the world works. So it is a weird crossroads, right?
Mhm.
And 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 when I set a rate, my rates are appropriate. They
Mhm.
are not inflated, but they're not deflated. Very much so. But I'm also a person who sees somebody and says, "Ooh, if I could just spend 20 minutes with them."
Yeah.
Right? And I'm also very big at, exchanges.
Mhm.
I have people who work for me and not, in the beginning, they're interns, right? And so I didn't have financial ability to pay them, but I needed to make sure I was giving them something in return for their work because I don't believe in people working for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and part of that connection for me is when I'm real deep in this,
Yeah.
it's not work. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
am having the best time
Yeah. Yeah.
because I can see, and I see this in you as well.
Mhm.
What we're putting out in the world is what we didn't get.
Mhm.
And so it's ensuring that this next generation
Mhm.
gets the things that wasn't afforded to us or provided to us. I want to make it easier for other people to walk in their purpose, right?
Yes. Yes.
Uh, why would I want it to be harder for people just because it was hard for me?
Right.
Right? And I think that story of the lion and the lioness can helps it emphasizes that, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Is she is working in service of the pride.
Mhm.
Now, she gets something from that.
Mhm.
Strength, confidence, contentment, joy, right? All of those things. But it is about something bigger and is in service. And I really think that's what humanity should be about.
Yes, it's bigger than ourselves. And that's
Yes.
what that the women that I love to work with are the ones who know they're on a mission. They know
Yeah.
that they're made for more, and my work is to help bring that out of them so that they can see it because a lot of times it is like me, it was laying dormant.
Yes.
Inside
Yes.
of me. One of my friends says, um, "There are a lot of dreams in the grave."
Ooh, can you repeat that one more time?
There are a lot of dreams in the grave.
Oh, so
The
beautiful.
dreams that we hold that die with us that we never act on.
Yeah.
I mean, chills, right? I just
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the body
yeah.
feels that.
Yeah.
It's it's too important, and it's not about us. It's so much bigger than me. My purpose is greater. And
Yeah.
so every single woman that I'm working with, her purpose is greater than herself. So,
Yes.
but in order to fulfill the purpose, we have to stand strong in who we are. We cannot like there's this false humility that shows up that holds us
Yes.
back. Right,
Yes.
no, like, we have to actually grab hold of who we are
Yeah.
and be able to stand firmly and speak out to the world who we are, what we're doing, what we're about, and casting this vision and inviting other people into it. It's the work I do around what I call it brand brilliance. It's a workshop that I walk women through to find their personal branding. Now, part of that is finding the content and the language. Then
Of
the
course.
work is to empower that language because it's never going to be. I am gifted in language and I help them make it stronger,
Sure.
unique, stand out, powerful. But it's the brilliance. Then the last phase is to step into it with confidence, to embody it, to believe it ourselves first, so that then we can share it with the world.
Yeah.
Because if we just stay silent about who we are, we don't even understand who we are. Everyone misses out. The entire pride misses out.
Yeah.
And I have a strong belief that the whole world is connected. We are all connected. And
Mhm.
so if we're not doing our part, then everyone else is suffering in some small way that has these greater ripple effects.
And I think it's important, you said something, you used a phrase "made for more,"
Mhm.
and you could never have known this. "Made for more" has a tiny trigger for me,
Hmm.
but it's funny. It's not like I'm not gonna go home and cry to my therapist after this. Uh, I used to work for a company called Oakley. Most people know them for sunglasses, but they do so much more than that, and really amazing company. And one year in the introduction of our women's line, we kind of redid a branding, and the campaign was called Made for More.
Okay.
And without getting too deep in it, there were some hits and misses in that campaign on what that meant and the way people perceived that messaging. I worked in a pretty conservative channel of distribution of optical, so prescription eyewear and those things. And a lot of the women that worked in those stores and accounts, they were what we would call middle-aged women in the middle of the country. And when they saw Made for More and it was tied into some beautiful 20 something in yoga pants, right? They felt demeaned
Wow.
and they felt as if, well, I'm never going to be that, so I might as well not, right? And I
Mm.
think that happens a lot. And so often I would travel the country speaking about our women's line, but not really. It was 10% that. It
Okay.
was 90% women and the power that we have and
Yes.
that power in capitalism, which we don't like to talk about, but let's be honest. And what there's this phenomenon of women where they're like, "Okay, I'm getting my stuff together." Sorry for clapping in the microphone audio files. I'm gonna go run today. This was always the example I use. I'm gonna start, and at first I have to walk. And so we walk 3 miles. But we do not celebrate the 3 miles. We say, "Well, Judy down the street ran 3 miles, so I'm not very good." We diminish that the 3 months before, we didn't even get off the couch.
Yeah.
And then we run 3 miles, but Jill ran a half marathon.
Mhm.
And so we keep changing the goal, right? We keep changing the measure of success, and so we're killing ourselves in the process.
Yeah.
We're destroying our own self-confidence. We're telling ourselves we're not enough. We're
Mhm.
doing all of these things because we're not honoring the moments and the successes that we have along the way, which is what we've been talking about in this celebration of moments.
Yeah.
And what I would say to these women is made for more can only be defined by you.
Yes.
And what you are made for is your conversation with yourself, with whatever your belief is. So if it is God, if it's the universe, if it's a spirit, a soul, whatever. I'm not here to judge anyone's belief, but that's wholly unique to you and that relationship.
That's
And
right.
so more for you might be less than what is more for someone else because we all have unique gifts. And I use the word less very uncomfortably
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's no such thing, right? Like my sister in law, I've said this before, so apologies for repeating. When I wasn't getting my speaking gigs and I was working a full time job, I was getting really down on myself. Like, oh, I found my purpose and I'm not doing it. And my sister in law said, hold up. Yes, you are.
Mm.
You've got 50 women in this company that you are coaching and mentoring and lifting up. You're speaking here. You're impacting change here. And yet we live in a culture that if you're not Beyonce, right, you don't have impact. And impact starts grassroots. It starts in your community and your pride,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
impact where you
Uh,
can. What gives you joy?
that's right. So good. And we are all unique, so our journey is gonna look very distinct, and the
Yes.
comparison game is always gonna kill.
Yes.
No one
Yes.
wins when we play that comparison game. You know,
Yeah.
my the thing I'm celebrating may be enormous for me and be super easy for you, but that doesn't mean I don't celebrate my thing because
Yes.
for me, that was hard. And
And something else will be in reverse, right? Something else will be easy for
yes,
me and hard for you, and that's why we are all supposed to
celebrate
be
each
here,
other, right?
right? And we live in a culture who wants us to assimilate,
Mhm.
and assimilation to me is the root of all evil.
Mhm.
Because if We were supposed to be one being with one mind and one thought and one talent and one gift. That's what we would be, but we're not,
No, that would be
right?
so boring.
And so be a I say this and people tease me because you're not supposed to say bad words. I'm a beautiful weirdo, and I am so happy about that. It's so much better than some gorgeous thing that you can't touch and you can't experience and you can't
Mm,
connect with, right? I am left of center. That is a compliment. I'm a black sheep.
mm,
That's a compliment.
wow.
It means that I am forging my own path. And and I'm going to use this as our kind of wrap up because for me that's what's important, right?
Mhm.
But for you, you have this collective universe of listeners, right? And obviously fear and all those things we've talked about. But what is it you wish they all knew? And what is it that you wish they all acted on?
Oh, I wish that they would know that there is more inside of them that than they realize. There's more power
Yeah.
than they are living within. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, there is something inside of us that wants to emerge
Mm.
and to act on that, to get curious with ourselves about
Yes.
what wants to be seen, what wants to be said. Sometimes I do this work of, if you let your heart speak right now, what would it say?
Yeah.
If you let your intuition have voice, what would it tell you?
Yeah.
There's so much inside of us, there's so much wisdom. And yet, this facade and this box, there's all these things that are attempting to keep us small and to keep us held back from reaching our fullest potential. And so, you talked about the privilege of space and time. We don't have kids, and so we have more space and time. I actually think that coaching is the sacred time that women can set apart, just an hour, right? Just an hour,
Yeah.
so that they can explore what's inside of them,
Yeah.
explore what else they want their lives to be about. The other thing that I think is really important is, once that once a woman reaches the point in her life where she is an empty nester, that I do a lot of work with women at that phase, leading up to that phase, in that phase, and then there's a new chapter opening up for these parents. And so, if they're not intentionally moving into that space, then there's gonna be some, disorientation, to say
Yeah.
the least. And
Yeah.
so, there are these seasons of our lives
Yeah.
where we may have more time to explore and imagine what we're created for. And
Yeah.
so,
'Cause it's never too late,
that's exactly right.
which
Yeah.
is so cliche. I mean, ugh, but it's very, very true
Right.
that while time might be finite, wait, there's peaks and valleys to that time and how we choose to use them and what we explore, and there's a reason for everything. There's a reason in a season, right? And so it's finding those seasons and those moments because also your kids see you. They see way
Mhm.
more of you than they think that they do.
Yeah.
And if they see you taking care of yourself, that's how they learn how to take care of themselves,
Mhm.
right? They see how you talk to yourself,
That's right.
how you celebrate yourself, right? And,
Right, you invest in yourself.
yes,
Moms
yes.
moms will invest in their kids all day long
Yeah.
without thinking about it. But when it
Yes.
comes to making an investment in themselves, it's much harder.
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
habit, that's a habit. I call it the habit of no. It's a habit
Yes.
less when it comes to other people.
Yes.
We have a habit of no when it comes to ourselves. It's
And you
just
don't have to be a mom to feel that at all, like,
right.
that's a very feminine,
Yeah.
experience, I think.
Yeah.
Do you I said that was gonna be the last, but I have one more, thing.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody if they asked you, "Okay, you told me to what would I do if I listen to my heart or I listen to my intuition?"
Mhm.
What would you say to them if they're not sure when to trust it and when not to trust it?
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one. I do a ton of work around trusting ourselves, trusting our intuition.
Yeah.
And the truth is that that takes practice. So there was a time in our lives where we could trust our intuition, and it was a lot of times nurtured out of us,
Mm,
trained out of us. Nope,
mm,
listen to the authority. The authority knows best. As
yeah,
opposed to now, I don't feel good about this person. I don't feel good about this situation. It's in us. We just might be not practiced in it recently. And so practicing it means starting with small things
yeah,
and trusting your gut, seeing how it worked out.
yeah. You
Trust
know,
the bigger
it's
things.
it's a differentiation too because I think for me that lesson came in there's more than one voice. There's your head, there's your heart, there's your gut. For me personally, the gut is the only reliable
Yeah.
narrator, excuse me.
Uh-huh.
The heart and the, brain, they got a lot of other things going on that try to, like, trick me, but my gut knows, and
Uh-huh.
that's truly where instinct comes, and my gut has never been wrong. I
Uh-huh.
have ignored it before,
That's right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I think that's also is deciphering the noise that's in our head because there is a lot, maybe not for everybody, there's a ton in my head. It's
Yeah.
deciphering where those messages are coming from a little bit and knowing, am I being too logical? Am I being too in my feelings,
Too
right?
emotional. Yeah. I think that's
Yeah.
the other piece where having that sacred space in a coaching relationship
Yeah.
gives that space for silence to let
Yes.
those things settle
Yeah.
and explore, okay, how do I identify what is my voice?
Yeah.
What is
Right.
my intuition? And
Yeah.
how can I honor it by listening to it?
Yeah.
And it's like strengthening that muscle, right?
For
Like an
sure.
athlete, we have to strengthen that because then once it's strong, oh, we can depend on it. It's going to serve us for the rest of our lives, but we have to tap into it and understand that that is ours and it is trustworthy.
For sure. Um, so before we go, I just want to say one thing to all of the listeners. Coaches, mentors, help, community comes in all shapes and sizes and forms. For some, that can be therapy. For some, that can be pharmaceutical or pharmacological. I don't know how you say that. For some, it is a professional coach. For some, it is a group of women that just come together in community. And however you find it, find it. No one solution works for everybody and everyone. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3, 4 or 5 of those things and those communities to find what you want because the goal is to not live in a vacuum. The goal is to not live in the darkness, but to find what serves you, what lifts you, what empowers you, what connects you. And so whether that is a professional coach or a personal coach like what Jen Porter does, reach out to her. I'm assuming you have a website you can tell us about?
I do. Yeah. People can find me at discovertrueself.com.
Okay.
And I'm on LinkedIn, Jen Porter
Okay, perfect.
Coach on LinkedIn.
And we will put all of this in the show notes and on our Instagram and all of that. If you will also provide other resources if you're looking for programs or uh, uh, therapeutic help or local groups, we'll make sure and put some of those things in there because we just want women to go out and live their best life and be the lioness that they are and that you have now taught us that we all are. Um, I always I'm very chatty in case you can't tell. So I do like to give the guest the final word. So anything you would like to say before we close out?
Oh, I think so. It's been a joy to be here with you. And I
Mm,
hope that the audience has gained some nuggets that they can take with them and will be really, really valuable. I would say trust yourself. You're worthy. You're worth making the investment in yourself in all the ways. And in an era where isolation and loneliness is so um, Is just a place that so many of us find ourselves in. Reach out, connect. To your point, Dawn, there's all kinds of ways to find community. We're not made to do life alone. So lock arms with good people.
Yes, I love it. Thank you, Jen Porter. We're so happy and humbled that you would be a guest on our show, and we can't wait for people to learn more about what you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.